Welcome to PR After Hours, your weekly cocktail of news and interviews with leading thinkers in PR, marketing, and business. So pull up a chair in our virtual lounge. Your host, Alex Greenwood, will be right back after this.
Welcome to Season 5 of PR After Hours. I'm Alex Greenwood. Hey, I hope you enjoyed our spiffy new intro with voiceover artist Mary McKenna. Mary did a wonderful job, I think you'll find, at the beginning here. And of course, you'll hear her again on the outro of the show as we wrap it up after our show here today. But if you're interested in hiring Mary, she's a 35-year plus radio veteran, voiceover artist, fantastic, and just a wonderful lady. So check the show notes if you want more information on how to reach her to do your intro, outro, or company video narration, etc., etc. She's fantastic. Oh, here we are, Season 5. Just a reminder, Season 5, we're going to have fewer episodes, but we're going to work very hard to keep that quality right where you expect it here on PR After Hours. And I'm looking forward to that. We'll have, again, fewer episodes, and in particular, we'll have fewer interview episodes. We'll have 2 seasons this year. This first one, of course, being Season 5, which will be from January 2022 through about May. And then we'll take a summer break, and we'll be back right about the beginning of fall and go all the way to the end of the year as we normally do. And we'll have about a minimum of 15 episodes per season, and out of those, roughly half of them, maybe more, maybe less, will be interviews with people. The rest will be shows like this one where I give you some tips. And without further ado, I have some tips I found, and I happen to agree with them, most of them, and I'll elaborate on them. But these are some tips from Fortune Public Relations in the UK, and it's an article. It's top 10 PR tips, and I found that sometimes you go back to the simpler stuff with folks, and they get a lot more out of it because you can get pretty deep in the weeds, as I've done over the past 2 years with over 150 shows, and sometimes it's good just to refresh those basics. So I'm going to go through this with you, and there'll be a link in the show notes if you want to read more about it. But I'll give you the highlights of their tips and my thoughts on that. And the first tip is know your messages. Identify 3 short, pertinent messages about your brand that will inform your public relations and marketing efforts. Everything you do then should be in line with those messages. And they go on to say, and I totally agree, I could have written this myself, this will ensure you are both consistent and true to your brand. And number 2 is live up to those brand values. Be clear and transparent about your product, and make sure that your business practices, not just your marketing, lives and breathes your brand values. Number 3, distinguish yourself. Be yourself. Everybody else is already taken. That's the old Oscar Wilde quote. And it rings true for you and your business. They add, be unusual in a good way. Think laterally and stand out from the crowd. They next invite you to build a media list, and if you want to know more about that, let me know. And understand the journalists that you're pitching when you target them. Oh my gosh, I've been on and on about that for years, right? Find out what the journalists in your particular realm are looking for their stories, and work from there. Don't spray and pray. Find people who are interested in your message for you or your clients. Remember, PR is more than editorial. That's their number 6. Create integrated public relations programs that embrace multimedia activity, including publications and films, community sponsorships, promos, stakeholder engagement, and face-to-face customer activity. They say that many of these things can be undertaken at low cost these days, and I happen to agree. So check that out. They have some links in there, and you'll get that through the show notes. Number 7 is speak out. Offer yourself to speak at events or hold your own, and invite journalists and partner companies along. Public speaking isn't everybody's favorite pastime, as they say, but it's an effective and memorable way of communicating. I do that. I speak out all the time. I go on local television. I'll have to do a little bit of less of that this year because I've taken a kind of a contract position with another firm where they're probably not going to want me out there blathering on, since I'm part of their team for a while. But I'll get back into that when the time is right. So I really do recommend that you get out there and speak and offer yourself up, not only to speeches and lectures and panels, but also then become a go-to source for your local media. You'll find that once you're a good source with local media, and this is a big tip from me, if you're on time, you have good quality stuff to offer every time, you keep it fresh, and you have a good interaction with the host, they're going to ask you back. Okay, share news and expertise. That goes right along with that, right? Write blogs for the company website. If you need ideas to kickstart writing, many business organizations like your Chamber of Commerce, LinkedIn groups offer low-cost, even free training sessions. And once your blog is established, you can also invite guest bloggers to contribute. That's a way to pull people into your orbit. Longtime listeners of this show know that I've actually appeared in a book that one of our listeners, Jim James, out of East West PR in the UK, he's featured my interview and my tips in his book called The Unnoticed. And coming up, and another guest of the show, Mark Witt, he is going to have a quotation or two from me in his new book on PR coming out late this year. So these things can happen, and a lot more has happened to me that has been really positive, simply by sharing news and expertise, as well as engaging with other people and asking them to share with you, our listening audience. Another tip they have is social media engagement. If your customers are to be found on social media, target the relevant ones and communicate with them regularly. They're an excellent way of reaching a large number of people for free. And the critical thing is to be sure that your customers actually use Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, etc. If they don't waste your time too much with it. It's good to stake out, as I say, stake out your username so nobody else can get it, maybe a competitor, because you never know down the road what might happen, and you do want to own your own name, or at least a good username that's germane to what you do. But go where your prospective customers and audiences are. If they're not into toxic Twitter, they may be in a different demographic who love Facebook or LinkedIn or even TikTok. Just find out what that is and then develop a robust presence on that channel. And lastly, they say sweet talk. Talk to people. Talk to your suppliers, your friends, your relatives, your postmen. Tell them about the wonderful things your company does. And of course, ask your clients for testimonials. That is priceless PR. Listen, I so agree with that one. It took me a long time to really build in asking for a testimonial at the end of every job I did for clients. Not all of them are going to do it. It's not because necessarily they didn't think I did a good job. It's some of them just don't know how to do one, even if you try to help them, or some of them just aren't comfortable with it, or they're just too darn busy. But you'll find often that lots of them will. And in particular, I recommend you get them to do the review on Google, because that is very searchable, and you'll be glad you did that. It's very helpful. I'm working on getting more Google reviews, but I also write books, and I make sure that people who buy my books and tell me they like the books, please go on Amazon and leave me a review. Reviews are social proof. They are adding to your credibility, and you're going to want to do that. You're going to want to get that. You're going to get that sweet talk out there, right? Well, again, that was from an article by Fortune Public Relations called Top 10 PR Tips. And I just thought it was a great one to share and to kind of springboard off of for our inaugural Season 5 episode. So I'll tell you what, we'll be back next week with another episode. And until then, I think it's about time we shut down this here virtual lounge for a while. We'll talk to you soon.
You know what that means? It's last call here at the Virtual Lounge. Be sure to visit prafterhours.com for links to what we discussed in this episode and more. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And join us next time for another round at PR After Hours with Alex Greenwood.